Hey everybody, HMV here. The more Kerbal Space Program, and we have still got the contract to return from the moon, but we're going to ignore it for now because we're going to make Minmus our goal. We are going to pick up this satellite contract, though, as a backup, just in case we don't make the Minmus goal. So, Minmus Lander 1 takes off, and this launcher design is pretty well tested by now, so without too much fuss, we burn up to Minmus. And we drop the transfer stage a little bit earlier than I prefer. Makes me a little bit concerned about perhaps reaching Minmus or not. We still have no upgrades to to help us out here. We do get up to Minmus's altitude, and I noticed that I'm a lot more north than I'd like to be. So I fix that with a quick burn to the south. Well, okay, 2 quick burns. This one to the east. And as soon as we enter Minmus's sphere of influence, our already dodgy comms give out. And this satellite is dead. So with no control and not being aimed the correct way, all I can do is perform the pre-programmed science gathering sequence from the probe, because you know they planned for this and they grabbed the science automatically, and then we let the probe exit Minmus's sphere of influence, and it comes back into comms range instantly, which is kind of weird because it's still the same distance. But hey, what are you going to do? So at least we're going to get some science from this mission. And we still have plenty of fuel, and we can nail that satellite contract, right? Though, do I have the skills without any patch conics, maneuver nodes, or anything? Yeah, it's looking good. It's looking better. I got to get that angle perfect. Just a little bit radio. Got it. There we go. Easy peasy. And we got science. And we're going to keep this guy up here. So if we get any in space around Kerbin science contracts, we can just nab them. And maybe someone will ask us to move it or something. Hey, who knows? So I obviously need better comms on this satellite, and for that, I'm going to want to protect stuff in bearings. So we get a contract for science from the surface of Minmus. That's what I wanted to do. Well, so we're obviously going to take that contract. And Minmus Lander 2 is off. I find that the Reliant is a really good engine for an 18-ton rocket. It's a little slow off the pad, but I think it's better than any other option. And if you just put a Reliant with some fins on it, you're good. But anyway, stage 1 separation. Let's ditch those fairings and extend the antenna. And basically the same trip to Minmus as the first time, though this time I paid more attention to the ascending and descending nodes, so I was able to actually get close. Well, as close as I could. But still, I managed to nail an encounter. And an orbit. Orbiting backwards, not a really big deal on Minmus. It's so light, orbits are so slow, and it spins a little fast, but it's really, when it comes down to it, it's meters per second. It's dozens of meters per second instead of hundreds like it would be on another planet. But I do want to land on a sunlit Kerbin facing side, and you'll notice I arrived here basically when Minmus is between Kerbin and the sun. So I have to wait a few orbits and then I can come down to land. This spot here looks perfectly fine to me. Final approach, and I figure on the way down that I have 2 goose, so I may as well get one in space near Minmus. And touchdown. Don't break that antenna. Okay, cool. I didn't account for the better antenna not being able to transmit the materials bay data because it has higher energy cost. So I had to turn off the transmission safety and just transmit what I could. Still, we got 175 science and, more importantly, a building upgrade. I really want patch conics, so I'm going to take that one. And this normally would be the end of this episode. After not even 3 minutes. Well, probably 3 minutes. But 2 things. One, I really want to get home from Moon because it's so annoying not being able to get home from Moon. And now we have a building upgrade and we have insight into what the problem is. So I want to try that Moon return one more time. So with the help of the patch conics, I was able to get a much better encounter periapsis, which saves me a lot of fuel. And with all the explosion problems, I decided, as you'll see, to encase the entire probe core in one of those bays, the protective shell here, to keep it from burning up. So obviously I've done it dozens of times. There's no problem with the moon landing. I opted though to burn straight up. It's not so bad when leaving the moon from the far eastern side, and it saves a lot of playtime not getting into moon orbit first, which is always a concern with me. And I got my periapsis at Kerbin with no real problems. And as usual, I burned up the last of my fuel, and I hit the chute, and I ditched the last of the rocket. And I better close those pod bay doors, Hal. The pod survived re-entry with no problems, and the chute triggered. And at 1 kilometers, it expands. Kind of. It didn't actually expand. We're going really fast down, and it again blows up. But wait, we got the contracts. We got 20 meters underwater contract, but also we got the return from moon contract. So it's done now. I don't know how I successfully returned from moon. Maybe crashing into the surface of Caveman works. Maybe it slowed down just enough to count right before dying. I have no idea. I don't care. I'm just happy that they're happy and they paid me. But that also means we can grab another Explore contract. We got Explore Caveman, dock 2 vessels. Well, that's convenient because I was planning on doing that when I went to Duna. But that's next time. And actually, that's not next time. That's this time, because I'm getting sick of these 5-minute episodes. I'm going to start doing 2 of these at once, maybe even 3, which of course means they're going to be even farther apart because I don't have as much time to play Kerbal Space Program as I normally do. But let's go to Duna. We forgot to take the rendezvous at Caveman contract. It was days later that I came back. I time warped all the way to my Duna window, and then I remembered I needed to take the contract. So we missed out on some free money, but who cares? But we're going to go ahead anyway. And we launched the fuel probe. That got up to 50 kilometers and 2 kilometers per second before ditching the first stage, which is nice. And then we ditched the nose cone, revealing that newfangled docking port that's going to make this whole thing possible. And nothing special. We get into an 80 by 80 orbit. So now it's Jeb's turn. And the actual lander. He didn't make it quite as far as the probe because he's a larger ship. But 42 kilometers and 1650 meters per second is not too bad. We want Jeb's orbit to be lower than the fueler so we can catch up to it because we launched second. We also want to take the time to adjust the tilt so we are perfectly in plane. And then we take a few spins around the planet to meet the 2 ships up. I burn a little retrograde here as we're nailing our encounter to get those markers as close as I can. Luckily, that doesn't put me into the atmosphere, but it could have. So it's something you want to pay attention to if you're doing this kind of a rendezvous. But then I burn at the opposite side of the orbit to bring the markers together, which of course skews them again, but not enough to really worry that much. We should be able to get the rendezvous. I burn here so that my prograde marker in target mode is right at the target. Another option would have been to burn such that those 2 orange markers on the right there were as close together as possible, but without maneuver nodes, that's never the easiest, and I find that just getting the things to be constantly heading together doesn't waste that much fuel, and it always works. Stay on target. Stay on target. Well, hello there, little probe. So I aim Jeb at the target, and then I jump to the probe and aim the probe at Jeb, who I can't find, so I have to target him in map mode. And at this point, I note that the sun is about to set, and without power, we're not going to be able to do very much on these 2 ships. But as the sun is setting, I sidle up beside the probe, flip around, and nail it. I still can't transfer fuel, because I don't have the upgrade for it. So I disable Jeb's fuel tank instead, and I bring the probe with me until it's out of fuel. I figure, hey, we need as much fuel as we can, so let's do that. So before this whole thing started, as I said, I time warped to Duna, so it's ready to go. With Caveman at 3 o'clock, you want Duna basically vertically above you on the clock. And you want to eject to Duna somewhere around here. With no maneuver nodes, I had to burn with a little bit of faith. I mean, I'm sure I'll get close, and I'm fairly sure I can tweak it midway there. What I'm not sure of is if I could nail a perfect atmospheric entry from Caveman's sphere of influence without maneuver nodes, which is what I would need to do with a probe, which is why Jeb's going in the first place, because I need Jeb there to be able to do that. So nobody was more surprised than I was when I nailed Duna's sphere of influence without even trying, and managed to get my trajectory passing directly under Duna with only minor fiddling. I notice here that I'm basically at my descending node, so I decide to try to burn north to actually nail my Duna periapsis. This is very fidgety, as you can see, and it is very sensitive to any slight deviation from normal, which I can't nail with Jeb. If I go prograde, retrograde, radial, anything, it's just zigging, zagging back and forth. So a lot like Wash and Firefly, I am basically throwing a dart across the solar system and trying to hit a, relatively speaking in my case, very small target. And it's slightly hampered by the fact that the fueler probe ran out of gas right before completing. So bye-bye probe, thanks for the fuel. But back to work. I think we can actually get this right to 15 kilometers. 17? Yeah, that should be fine. Couple hundred days later, and we're at Duna. We brought Jeb all this way, and we might as well use him to bring the periapsis down to where we're sure to be stopped by the atmosphere. 13 kilometers, that should work fine. And Atmo. This looks a little hairy, but it is Duna. We were never in any real danger of burning up. Drogues go. Main chutes go. I never, ever bring enough shoots to Duna. I don't know who does. But nothing more than a light tap on the throttle that can fix that, and we land safely, and I get an unlock. Up until this point, it was basically a foregone conclusion to me that I would upgrade mission control so I could get maneuver nodes. However, this mission went so smoothly, I'm thinking I can instead unlock the launch pad so we can get a heavier launch vehicle. And next time, we're going to Eve. The goal is to land a probe on Eve, and to land Val on Gilly, and to bring Val home. That's what we're doing. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I definitely enjoyed playing it. I'm HMV, and I will, as always, talk at you later.